Hi, Ellen.
Hey, Dean.
Ellen, okay, let's jump right in. Hypothetical. You just started a 1 year engagement, okay, with a new client. Today's day one. What's the first problem that your clients tend to need you to fix? Or, if you prefer, what's the first problem you go looking for? Because that business might not even know they have a problem, but you know that a problem exists. They just can't see it yet. Oh, and let everyone know a little bit about you.
Certainly. Well, thanks for letting me join you today. So, what I'd like to do is just cut to the core and, in the interest of time, say that almost always my clients are challenged with messaging, positioning, and go to market strategy, including defining their target markets, their personas, their competitive ecosystem, being well defined and instantiated into their marketing automation as well, or any kind of existing lead gen process they might have. So it's really the big picture stuff that is
Right.
really where they need help. And it's often urgent that they implement and scale their inbound and lead gen, and obviously the SEO and content marketing. So we begin there. We try to set up the operational piece um, as we begin to define their strategy, so that we don't lose momentum and we get the first 30, 60, 90 days, we get that lead gen pipeline moving if we can. So I try to avoid redesigning and building a new website until the messaging is spot on and the positioning is spot on,
Right.
and we can then immediately move to the inbound operations stuff. um, you'd be surprised at how many firms can't get that part right and have difficulty
Yeah.
defining it, messaging it. And it's hard for agencies who don't have the strategic talent to help. And what I mean by that is they're often much more operational than they are strategic
Right.
in terms of business strategy. So while that's happening, it's often necessary to change the website. So we can make modifications and positioning changes temporarily while we create the inbound marketing piece and get that moving. But those website projects are often a multi month, relatively large project, and they can suck resources from small firms. So the important thing is I've got it down to where it's like a methodological science, and I do the messaging and positioning, and I review uh, all the content, editorialize the content myself,
Yeah.
because I really believe that you can't leverage that to someone else. Not entirely. It's a big
Can't fully
challenge.
delegate it.
I'm sorry,
You can't fully delegate it.
you can't. You can't.
It
It's a
can't be
big
hands off, I should say.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah. Well, let's switch from you to the CEO, right? So,
Did you want me to tell you my background, or do you want to go to the CEO?
oh yeah, yeah, no,
Oh, all right.
definitely
I
want
just
to know.
figured I would give you a quick update. So,
Yeah,
um, I'm a global fractional or acting CMO. I either take a part-time role or a full-time temporary role to accelerate growth globally, if assuming the firm is global, until they raise capital, or they I can help them with that, or they look for a permanent full-time CMO, which I can also help them with. So that's my major focus these days. But my industry focus is B2B tech, SaaS, or
right.
technology integration services, any kind of tech firm, and financial services, mainly for startups or small to medium sized businesses, uh, or in or around those sectors. And I especially like and enjoy helping global brands come on shore or grow their US presence. Um, just a quick 2 seconds on my background. It's mostly financial services, having been an executive with Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, Bankers Trust, and Accenture, focused on tech and operations. I earned an MBA in finance. So that's my core competency: technology, operation. And that's why I got into marketing, because digital marketing has become measurable. It used to be much more creative. Now it's more science based rather than just an art based
Hmm.
function. And so I've been focused on digital marketing for going on probably 12 plus years. And I'm very hands on. So I enjoy the technology, the operational, and also the analytics pieces. And that's me.
So a company signs up. They bring on for a 1 year engagement. They bring on a fractional CMO, right? What are the classic ways that they waste their money
So you
with that
mean getting the
fractional?
most you mean getting the most value
Yeah.
from the engagement? Yes. Um, I wrote a piece about this recently in a blog post, why CMO tenure is short relative to the other C-suite executives. And one key issue that's plaguing CMOs is a misalignment with the CEO's vision and business objectives that can lead to early replacement. So it's on both parties to ensure that the first 30, 60, 90 days is well defined
Right.
and clear. Um, they should immediately be aligned, the CEO and CMO, on goals, on priorities, and communicated clearly and in detail. So, whether it's awareness building, whether it's traffic growth that they need immediately, whether they need qualified lead gen, which is always the, the secret sauce. They may need sales integration. And of course, ultimately, they need metrics and a continuous analysis and reporting to give them an understanding of progress and results. So the CEO and CMO need to be aligned. Those things need to be in place. And the highest priority should be what they jointly agree are those high priorities. Um, but I think that the real challenge is immediately for the CMO to understand the business strategy and tailor this marketing strategy, obviously, accordingly.
Right.
Um, and of course, financial metrics, very important, often missed. What are your goals and objectives quarter by quarter? Um, all the financial metrics that go into looking at marketing and how and what the ultimate return on investment would be. So those are just some of the things. I often find out, Dean, that firms are not really good at organizing their customer data. And it,
True
in
enough.
general, the customer data and the prospect data needs to be accessible and useful to do analysis. And that has been a major problem. Cleaning up data, making sure the data is consistent and accurate. So I've had firms that don't even have data on their current customers well organized. So that's a big issue with CEOs, and they have to need to know that that's important across marketing and sales, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's important for the CEO to be realistic about where they are and the budget and what they'll need to get to where they want to go. It's a complex function, digital marketing, and that's a reason why a lot of CMOs don't last because it's you've got five, six, seven different functions you're coordinating, and so the budget needs to be discussed up front so that the CEO understands the potential ROI and they understand what the budget should be commensurate with what they're trying to do. I think that setting up immediate and regular communication with between the CMO and the CEO is critical. And ultimately, and very important, is metrics. So the CEO should insist on analytics and metrics. I usually set up a Google Analytics account with dashboards as well as on marketing automation, in this case, sometimes HubSpot dashboards, so that the CEO can daily, literally daily, wake up, look at the dashboards, see what's happening, and have less questions about metrics than they do about operational details or processes or organizational issues.
Yeah, fair.
So the metrics and the analytics need to be really well done and almost immediate.
So what
Make
about the
sense?
people who are already in place, right? A fractional CMO comes in, as opposed to an interim CMO, which is often a full time position, but for a limited amount of time.
Right.
Fractional usually is like a smaller amount of time to go on for X number of months or years, right?
Yes.
So, uh, what are some considerations when you've just started with a new client and they may not have like marketing leadership,
Right.
they may or may not have marketing management, but they do have, junior and mid-level marketing people working on things. Like, what are some of the top two considerations when it's day one and now you're meeting that team?
Well, I've had that happen many times, so I can speak from experience. Many times, firms offshore and in the
Mhm.
U.S. Have have people in place. They just don't have a leader.
Yeah,
So I think the most important thing is meet each and every person on the team individually, get to know their strengths and weaknesses as quickly as possible. Get to know the team. That's critical. And then meet with internal clients, even people who are going to, like the sales leader and the
right.
COO. It's you've got to meet with as many folks as possible on a one-to-one to kind of get a sense of what they think has been going on and where they need to go. But providing feedback to the executives and HR about each of the folks on the team to discuss gaps on the team as soon as possible, it has to be done. First six, you've got to
Yeah.
give them input about the gaps.
So you're gonna meet all those individuals, okay? Let's flip
Yes,
it around a tiny bit. It's
sure.
Friday, email comes out, "Welcome, Ellen," and it's an announcement, right? On Monday, our new fractional CMO will be starting and be engaging with the marketing department, blah, 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 blah. Ellen did this, Ellen did that, right? You're one of the junior people or one of the mid people, the mid-level people on the marketing team. And so you get this email, you go to Google and look up what a fractional CMO is, because you've never heard of this,
Right.
right? You get an idea of what to expect uh, engagement wise, and you show up on Monday. You've had the weekend to think about it. You show up on Monday. What's going to be different for you, or like what should you do differently, or what should you do first
It's great.
now that there's a fractional CMO in place?
Well, first, again, it's that individual meeting that's really
Mm-hmm.
critical. Understanding what the person does, what their goals and objectives from a career perspective are. It's the same as it would be if I was leading a team internally. It isn't any different. I've been for more years of my
Yeah, but
career.
what does that employee do?
Ah, I understand now. Sure. So, I would say that's a good question. I have a tough time, maybe putting myself in their shoes, but I imagine they're usually very tenuous about
Could
having a
be.
new leader in place. Usually nervous. They don't know what to
Hmm.
expect. So I think from their point of view, they need to just show up with an open mind and ask a lot of questions of me. What are your planning and doing? What's your role? How are you going to be working with us? Let's say there's a time difference. I mean, oftentimes my clients are 5 hours or 9 hours later. Um, how does that work? Um, who's going to be waking up early or staying up late?
Right.
Those kinds of conversations are really important to get to know the people that you're going to be working with and make them feel comfortable that you're not there. You're there to help them. Your job is to clear the way for their success. That's really
Yeah.
what it is.
Okay. I have one more question around this.
Sure.
If let's go back to the CEO or the board, if
Sure.
or someone on the ELT, right? If I'm bringing in a fractional CMO, should I be looking at this as a sprint kind of engagement or a marathon kind of engagement? Right?
Great.
Like there's like a finish line. We may make another finish line after that one's done, but there's a finish line, and we're like, I want someone who's going to drive to X, or a marathon where this is going to be a day or week, let's say, for the foreseeable future, and maybe for years and years. And that's sort of the pace we need to set up.
Well, I don't know that I would say that even if it's a marathon, that it is, I think that there's a happy medium in terms of the time that you spend.
Hmm.
But let me address sprint versus marathon in the context of an overall marketing strategy for a company. I would say that for the first 90 days, it's going to be a sprint, meaning you're going
Right.
to hit the ground running, analyzing what you have, what you need, putting the pieces together into a marketing strategy. You've also got things like organization design, Dean. You've got messaging, obviously, we talked about
Hmm.
all the technology, the tools, the best practices, implementation plans. I mean, you have a lot to do in the first 90 days. That I think of as the sprint. And then going after that, I believe in general, marketing is a marathon. If you
Right.
need a leader, and it's your fractional person, then you have to understand it it takes a lot of time, especially if you're doing it right. So everything that you need to do to create a really effective inbound marketing strategy, which I believe, putting advertising aside, because advertising spend in my mind is a different bucket, a different
Right.
set of funding. I would say that in general, it's a marathon. It's over time. It takes time. I mean, content marketing is not an overnight gig.
No.
It's really a long term play. So hiring a fractional is not only a way to accelerate results, because there's normally few, if any, political distractions. And it's a way to hire a damn good executive who knows what they're doing for a fraction of the cost. I mean, that's
Yeah.
really what you're doing. So, so that's really where I'm at when it comes to marathon or sprint. I think the first 90 days has to be a sprint. You got to get in there, work quickly, assess the situation, make recommendations, set everything up, and go.
Okay. So the last question I have for you today, it'll be the easiest one, I promise. Who should be contacting you, and how would you like them to do it? It looks like you want them to send email. That's always a great idea.
Right, my email's on the
Right?
screen. That's
Yeah.
true.
Who should be contacting you like in the next 3
right.
months?
If you are either an SMB or startup that's domestic or offshore, and you're a CEO who really needs somebody very senior and seasoned to help them even just discuss their strategy, whether you hire me as the fractional or somebody else.
Sure.
I am always happy to spend a couple of hours with CEOs on my dime and just brainstorm about what they're going to need. So you can contact me via email, and it's mostly CEOs of SMBs, startups
Hmm.
uh, who are uh, who are from SaaS tech, financial services, or any kind of technology integration services firms, domestic or global.
People in tech who make something complicated.
Yes,
Yeah.
and my job is to simplify it.
Yeah. All right. This has been great. Thank you very much for being here.
My pleasure.
Um, and I think that's it. Thank you, Ellen, and thanks for watching. And we'll see you in the clips, and we'll see you in the full episodes. Bye,
Fantastic.
everyone.
Thanks, Dean.